what the family is saying, they're saying, well, no, the child was not sick for 6 days, and they could not reach the ambulance driver. The family says they were advised by the Togo Health Center. So I don't know if it is that they are speaking of a different facility or a different number. That is to say, it might be the same facility, but you're contacting a different office, or if they're just using Togo Health Center and Togo Accident Emergency interchangeably. The family says they were advised that no ambulance drivers were available at the time and to transport the toddler to the hospital themselves, and they had to flag down a driver, a local in Matlot, to transport the child. I think now, ultimately, it is reported the child reached the accident emergency by about 6:10 and was pronounced dead at 6:59. The thing about this is that we need to remember, because I think it will be very easy to make assumptions when you're getting what is essentially eyewitness testimony, at least how it's been presented to us. This is what I believe it to be. Eyewitness testimony is not always the most reliable, and that could work either way. In fact, it could be that the testimony from both the members of staff of the Eastern Regional Health Authority and the family might not be 100% accurate because of the adrenaline and emergency situation and just the limitations of human memory. And this is why phone lines like this, emergency hotlines, ambulance phone numbers, police phone numbers, fire phone numbers, need to be recorded, because you don't want to depend on people to remember what happened in a high-stress environment. Because now there are going to be a lot of questions asked with regards to the ambulance service in that area. But I'll go a step further. I always have had questions about the ambulance service in the country. And there have been good experiences and there have been not so good experiences. But the problem is with something like this, you need it to be reliable. You know, every not so good experience, bad experience is unacceptable. It needs to be an extreme exception and not, you know, competing to be the average. So this is an unfortunate case. I can't imagine what the mother's going through. Her 3-year-old went to visit family, to be on essentially vacation up on the North Coast to enjoy herself. Again, the family disputes that the child was not sick for 6 days. So to them, it might be that this was very sudden. And of course, she would be unprepared. So my condolences to her. My prayers go out to her. But this has wider implications now, both for our community, primarily. But then, to some extent also, I think we should be questioning things throughout the country. There might be areas where, you know, your service is solid, you have nothing to worry about. But I don't know if that's the case for everywhere. Moving on with today's daily review. An interesting call from the Reunited Farmers Alliance. They want the EBC to reopen nominations. And we've spoken about this on Talking Point, where, again, both the Reunited Farmers and supported by the PEP, as well as Guy Griffith from the NTA, complained about the nominations process and various situations that caused a lot of the members, particularly of the Reunited Farmers Alliance, to not be able to properly register their candidates for the local government election with the EBC. And the complaints vary. And I question, is this because the EBC, well, they're just not necessarily good at their job, it's potentially poor service, or they're being too strict and they're not working with the candidates? Maybe they're trying to be impartial, so they have to be strict and objective and not give any special considerations. Maybe it is the Reunited Farmers Alliance not being prepared and their inexperience is showing, right? Now, course, we're on the outside looking in, it's hard to know for sure. Because the flip side is it could just be individuals in the EBC kind of not really taking the reunited farmers seriously, not really, or just being very, very, very by the book, not wanting to do anything to help a situation within reasonable realms of what they can and cannot do. But the reunited farmers are basically saying, hey, we want nomination day to be extended. I think Philip Edward Alexander pointed out, either him or Gary Griffith pointed out, hey, you extended an election, you can't extend nominations. Now, the issue is the EBC has more or less responded saying it's not legally possible for nominations to be reopened in the way the RFA requested. So that, of course, to some extent, that actually is understandable, and I would be surprised because this is not something you want the EBC to just be able to kind of do on a whim, right? There will be restrictions on how, if at all, extending something like nomination day could be done. But it did say that it was not legally possible in the way that the RFA requested. So that then begs the question, well, what is the other way? And should or could the RFA go down that path? So this is both interesting and unfortunate because without enough information, it's easy for people who are distrustful and cynical to look at the EBC in a negative light. And I don't know if the EBC is doing enough to properly communicate and convey the requirements and the necessities of what's going on. And if they don't, and this is assuming they have a good explanation, obviously, if they don't communicate properly, then again, you leave the population to their own devices to speculate. And I'm not necessarily going to speculate on this because especially with the EBC, I find it's something I'm not willing to just throw out my opinions there. I believe at least they don't have a track record that's going to cause me to suspect them of anything. And I don't want to undermine the independence and the integrity of the EBC in any way, no matter how small. But the population, everybody's individual opinions is not bound by that. I'm bound by that because, you know, people hear what I say in a professional capacity, and I have ethical considerations. But individuals don't have to be bound by that. They're free to, y'all are free to make up your own minds. And a lot of people are always quick to look at organizations, entities, and authority distrustfully. So it's also, I think, just one more point in politics in this era that is very interesting. You know, both what's going on in Tobago and this situation now, I find if I was a student in political science, it would be a bit more engaging than certain other times in our political history, even like say 3 to 4 years ago, where things were a lot more mundane, I would argue. Okay, quick mention, I just found this a bit alarming there on the third story I have for you. Short, simple, a Coast Guard member, I'm not sure if he's an officer or enlisted, he had a vehicle which he secured overnight on Sunday, and it was now reported yesterday in one of the daily newspapers Monday morning that as he was about to get in his car to go to work for the day, he noticed that his windshield, his front windshield, had multiple bullet holes. And I just wanted to highlight this to say, depending, one would think you're going to shoot at somebody's car because you know who the person is. Therefore, you know the person is a member of the Coast Guard, which is part of the Ministry of National Security. And I'm not saying that we should be necessarily all afraid of of agents of the Ministry of National Security being in harm's way. Well, to some extent, that's part of the job. To some extent, this was done assuming at his home, which technically is unacceptable, right? But I think therein lies the thing. They're willing to go to a Coast Guard member's home and shoot his windshield. It is suspected that it might be a threat. I can't imagine what other meaning shooting up someone's vehicle might mean. So, yes, you expect to be in some level of danger when you're in a national security arm. But this is personal, and we don't necessarily know to what extent this threat, how far it goes, how far the person is willing to carry out the violence, because it might not be limited just to the member of the Coast Guard, right? He has family, friends, neighbors, co-workers. And I just find it alarming that, okay, now they're being targeted outside of the job, off the clock, at his home. And what does that mean for the rest of us now? What does that mean for the rest of us? Because it's a certain level of either daring or recklessness on behalf of the person that did this. Probably both. Foolishness. But is this just one more sign where, look, the criminals are not afraid? They're not afraid of our criminal justice system, which I'm wondering at what point we're going to say and admit that it's a bit of a joke. Last story quickly that I want to get into. Basically, you might have seen it already. Migrant children are being allowed to enter our primary schools. And it's been reported that this has not been universally acclaimed by migrants themselves. Some are happy for it. It gives their children an opportunity to get an education in Trinidad and Tobago, and it implies that perhaps they want to settle here, which is fine once they do it all legally and everything. I have no problem with this. Some, however, are afraid of bullying, and I believe like the cultural differences, and of course, I guess there's going to be some concerns about the fact that, okay, but your child is being raised in a school system of a very different culture to you. Is that what you want? Some migrants are reportedly sending their children back to Venezuela to be educated. That also has its own challenges. I'm sure we in the Caribbean know about the challenges of diaspora, where parents are working to earn money in one country while the children are living in another, in the home country, and what that could be like. But I think ultimately there's also the consideration, my concern. I have no issue necessarily allowing migrant children to be educated. The question is, how much more is it going to cost an education system that already has the highest allocation, that already seems to not have enough money to deal with all of its responsibilities, to get all of its schools in order, all the renovations, to keep up with all the maintenance, and to potentially pay for all the staff, because I'm not entirely sure how much that is an issue with regards to any staffage problems. And then to what extent is this going to impact our curriculum, our displaced students? There's a whole host of complex questions that we should ask. I'm not saying don't let the kids be educated. I'm just saying we should do it properly, in the sense of find out all of the potential issues, big and small, and try and sort them out as soon as possible. Because if anything goes wrong, who do you think the affected local population is going to blame? They're going to blame the migrants. The affected migrant population, who are they going to have to complain to? Nobody's going to want to listen to them. Potentially, they might be ostracized to some extent if things go south. And you might be saying, oh, I'm doom and gloom. Listen, when things are complex, never underestimate how bad they could get. If it was obvious, and sometimes it is, and initiatives still go through anyway, even though it's obvious. But if it was completely obvious, then one would think they wouldn't do it so easily. They're going ahead, okay. Beyond the obvious, what is it that could happen that we should prevent? Because this is now where we're potentially starting to really integrate our migrant community into our local population. And some economists that have been on this show would be all for that. There are benefits to it, but I'll leave that as a topic for another day. Let's take a break. When we come back, Keaton and Janelle join me here to speak about more topics.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Kevin Hart would say, damn! Why we have so much minors out on the streets? There's an after-school program happening there. Side women, don't give up. You know, you can become queen one day. Those companies who are currently looking for their money that they deposited in the Silicon Valley Bank, it's not there. ChatGPT is basically the start of Terminator. Our relationship with the colonial powers is like a relationship with a little bit of abuse that people like to stay in. And we remember how that was. Put in $100 and later tonight, you'll get back 3,000. I promise you. I promise you not. Did you rent an accent while you were across there?
When you're in the proximity of Donald Trump, somehow you adopt his aura.
First of all, I thought the $200 would be more than enough. It's $200.
I'm a goat farmer. I have 3 goats. Yeah, 3 goats and 1 cow. You know the name?
No, I don't.
Right, Messi, LeBron, and Cristiano Ronaldo. And the cow name Haaland.
I love Trinidad and Tobago.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Hello there, welcome to Talking Points. I'm Keaton Shaw. Yes, we've had a bit enough of Shawn Michaels Moore for the last month. We thought we'd just give him a break this morning. Problem is, he doesn't want that break, so he's still with us via Zoom. Hello, Shawn.
Who says I don't want a break? If I knew that was an option, I would have taken a break.
Well, look, Janelle is with me.
I call hogwash to that statement. Misrepresentation, slander.
You can get out of your air-conditioned room down to the sunny, sandy beach. Because Janelle's with me in the studio. Hello, Janelle. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Long time.
Is it?
Yes,
yeah. Last week, Wednesday. That was the change.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Well, you see, it wasn't long enough. She was only here with us for like 13 minutes last week.
True.
Which is kind of our fault. We tend to talk too much sometimes. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
We're doing good. Happy Friday. Shawn, how are you doing?
Shawn should be doing better than both of us. He's in Tobago, right?
I know, right?
I'm working. People, it's a work trip. It's not a vacation.
Whatever you say, buddy. Whatever you say. Anyway, I'll tell you what, before we get too carried away with the casual side of life, which we probably don't get enough of on Talking Point, we're still going to have a conversation this morning with regards to consumer protection here in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, this topic arises out of essentially food prices. We know the situation with National Flour Mills and Nutrimix actually decreasing prices on retail flour. That is, if you go to the supermarket, the prices you would experience on the shelf, you'll see a decline. Commercially, though, work is still being done to try and reduce the price. That is why some bakeries have said that you're not going to see a reduction in the price of their products, because commercial flour prices, flour you buy in bulk, that has not decreased as yet. But it gave way to a much larger topic, and that is with respect to consumer protection, pricing protection, and even the quality of the goods that we see here in Trinidad and Tobago. And sometimes, even when I go to the supermarket now and I see a product, and I've never recognized this product before, and I start reading it, and I'm starting thinking, hold on, I don't understand half of this. What is this? Where has it come from? And we're being flooded with a lot of these items now. Even in terms of pricing. It was raised a couple of months ago that, and I think we raised it here on Talking Points as well, the price of a locally produced water cracker, correct, is actually the same price. I'm talking about dollar for dollar in the US as compared to TNT, which is amazing, because I'm thinking, hold on, by the time you export the product with shipping fees, cost of freight, cost of clearance, transports in the US, and having to stock it on the shelves, you'd think it costs more. That's not the case. It's actually the same price in the US.
Well, I'm surprised to know that.
So was I.
I am surprised to know that. I don't see how that could possibly be, because as you said, there will be other additional costs that go into exporting an item, taxing, freight, and all the like. So I'd be interested to know, what was the reason proffered for that?
I have no clue. I honestly have no clue.
I mean,
one thing to weigh in, though, although this does not really directly explain it, but it's very difficult to compare economies because there's a lot of different things that will change. But the one thing, though, that kind of... So it's difficult to compare an American economy to a local economy. However, at the end of the day, the business is in Trinidad, so one does have to question exactly how are they making money at that price after exporting it. But that goes into foreign exchange and perhaps,
maybe it's an economy of scale. Maybe it's the economies of scale issue because exporting it should be, I assume, a larger market than the markets available in Trinidad for cricks.
But we actually export a lot of products. We export soft drinks, we export confectionery and sweets, even as far as the Middle East. So products that we actually produce down here is exported, which is excellent. But focusing on TNT, is there a need for greater consumer protection and perhaps further government intervention? And you see that term, government intervention. Yes. It's a very, very two-sided term. People are standoffish and people are saying yes, definitely.
I would say there's greater need for consumer protection in Trinidad. I always found that the Consumer Affairs Division wasn't very, I wouldn't quite call it a toothless bulldog, but I found that how far they can go was limited. Essentially, the Consumer Affairs Division can assist you if you have a complaint against a supplier. They can intervene and sort of be an intermediary, but I think they work more on persuasion. I don't think there are many laws they can institute or call upon to really assist aggrieved consumers in certain cases. So they can assist you. There's the adverse, let me get the proper name, the law here, the adverse trade ordinance.
I thought you were going to say adverse weather alert.
No, we have the adverse trade practices order, which speaks to saying that you can't, suppliers or service providers can't have no refunds on their door, even if it's a sale, they can't say that, they can't. Yeah, that's basically one of the very few things that they can do, and so the Consumer Affairs can intervene in that case. But how far can they go in price? In terms of pricing, they can't. The government has adopted the approach that price controls is not something that they are willing to impose on suppliers because we are a free market economy. Mm-hmm. And I understand that there are pros and cons to price controls, but we have to do something.
There are pros and cons to absolutely anything. Mm-hmm. And you're right, something needs to be done. No, I agree. You don't want too much intervention because that's not going to be so great for the market. But at the same time, you just gave an example with respect to no refunds. There are some businesses I've seen that are saying no refunds on cash transactions. You know, and they can't do that.
And they can't do that. So then it's up to, the thing is, it's up to the consumer. So one of the rights of the consumer is the right to be informed. And the consumer needs to know their rights and therefore report it. The Consumer Affairs Division, the personnel can't be in every store. They can't go in every store and check to see what signs are there. So it's up to the consumer to do their part to make a report and get that intervention.
And precisely that, how many consumers are aware that they can go and make a report, and this is where I need to go and make the report. That's another side of it as well, which means Consumer Affairs probably needs to do a bit more in terms of informing the public. There's another side of it as well. In some places now, where you go to fill up gas, if you swipe your card, you have to pay first. So if you go and you swipe your card, your Link's card. If you don't insert it in the actual gas pump, some gas pumps now you can.
Yes, I love those that you can insert your card.
You can just insert it, yeah?
Perfect.
But then if you go up to the counter and you swipe your card and you say, okay, let's say $260 on pump 6.
Yeah.
And you go, you fill up your card, and it's only taking $240.
Okay.
$20, you know, some places are now saying, I'm sorry, no. We already swiped your card, we're not giving you back any money.
That is an interesting one, and again, I would encourage consumers to report that. I don't know what the law is in relation to that. To me, you've been overcharged, and I don't see why they can't take out cash from the till and then balance their books after. I need to hear the other side in relation to that. Yeah. But I see, Sean.
So the problem, I assume, is that they will be charged for the money that passes through their links. So if they refund you in full, they basically get charged. Part of the charge will be a loss. This is what I'm assuming here. The issue with that, of course, is that's not the consumer's fault. And if you want to have a pay first system and offer links payment or credit card payment, then you need to figure it out or bear the loss. Like, you can't offer people the convenience and then say, but it's costing me money. So if, you got it wrong, we're going to keep money from you. To me, that's basically, that's not just overcharging, that's outright theft. Because overcharging would be, you're charging me too much money for a good, but I'm paying for it. I didn't agree to pay this overcharge. You're stealing the $20 from me.
Precisely, and that's the thing. That raises another thing, which I myself am not entirely sure of. I don't know if anybody here could inform me. businesses have to pay every time you swipe your links card.
Yes.
Right? So there is a bank fee associated with that because you pay a rental for the links machine, but you also pay every time somebody swipes their card. And I'm wondering if it is a set percentage or is it a percentage of the actual
that
transaction?
That is what I wondered as
well. So
well.
I'm just trying to figure that out because I tried to go on Infolink's website. Thank God they actually updated the website. Before it was horrible. But it's still very difficult to get information.
Yeah.
Beyond that, there is no minimum amount of money that you have to spend in order to swipe your links card.
Yes.
If it is $1 and you don't have $1 on you, you can't swipe your links card.
But it's actually illegal for them to
exactly.
refuse taking your card and having this minimum payment, which I could never
There
understand.
are supermarkets now, and if I may say so, and I'm not being disrespectful, but there are also lots of Chinese supermarkets here in Trinidad and Tobago that say you need to spend a minimum of $40 before you could swipe your links card. And then there are a number of other smaller supermarkets
I've seen that in pharmacies mostly. There was a particular pharmacy in Port of Spain where you had to have a minimum of $20 to use your card. And I told them, I'm like, this is illegal. And that's the thing, again, it comes down to customers being informed and making a report because it's Infolinks, whoever it is that controls that, they would say, please report it to us. And I have reported institutions or business persons who have that sign up. And I'm proud to say that. And I think, and that brings me to my, something I was thinking about when I was thinking about this price control. Persons often call on the government every time there's a hike in a price to do something. Institute price controls, what are you doing? But I wonder if citizens know that we also have the power, that we have a power, and one of our greatest powers is the power of choice. We can choose if something has gone up. Let's use the bread and pastries for examples. If the price has gone up, it is our choice to stop buying it at all or buy less to send a message. And I think if citizens would rally around this issue, because we rally around other issues. For example, when KFC set their $2 price for condiments, there was a massive, at least social media protest, and KFC removed the $2. So if consumers were to understand that they have the power to influence what a supplier does, I think we'd be better off than just sitting back and always saying what the government doing.
But that is a very good point because another side of it is, and I'm glad you raised it, yes, we're speaking about consumer affairs and we're speaking about consumer protection. Yes, you have the power of choice. So you also have the power to choose what you argue, right? So yes, a good example is here in TNT, we tend to protest every time doubles goes up by $1 or every time KFC raises their price.
But do we really protest in terms of the dollar? I would actually disagree. I don't think we protest enough.
KFC's
when food prices go up, I don't think we protest
KFC's
enough.
KFC's profits went up, which tells me that there was no protest. They raised their prices and they still have that demand. And furthermore, do we actually do anything about it here in TNT besides go on social media and complain? No, that's just the
But I still think there's a power in negative publicity. I just think in Trinidad we utilize that power for things that are not as important. I would put it like that.
John Michael Small.
I think you hit the nail on the head. We don't protest, we complain. And complaining is basically saying, I don't agree with it, and that's it. We don't do like what Janelle did and report the institution. Now, with regards to links machines, I actually think we spoke about it a long time ago, Keaton, and we looked into it. And the charges, the nature of the charges vary from bank to bank. So the percentage, how high, if it's, I think some might be a flat fee, I can't remember. It varies. So that makes the situation more complex. There's not one bank servicing all links machines. But yes, we just complain. Now, to be fair to the businesses, they might have legitimate reasons, right? It could be long-term supply contracts, so their price is locked in. And sometimes we experience the phenomenon which we don't really notice because we only notice when things are bad. When the price doesn't change, even though there's inflation around whatever that business is. But the flip side is when you have those contracts, you know, next time you negotiate, then the high price is gonna hit anyway. when you have to renegotiate with the supplier. So there's a lot of factors with regards to the business. It was reported also in markets, there might be old stock that was purchased from before. It's difficult for them to bear the loss, depending. But I think ultimately speaking, it comes down to the fact that they know that we will only complain so much, and for the most part, we will buy. Except, we did see it, I believe, with tomatoes and sweet peppers.
Oh my goodness.
At some point, the price reached so high that it just stayed on the shelf.
Well, for me, what I notice about food prices, I find for perishable items, I see more movement in prices, going up and down depending on supply and the weather and those external factors. But when it comes to non-perishable items and necessities, things that can stay on the shelf, I don't see a lot of movement in the price. And I actually did a little bit of reading. I came across this an article in a book, and the article is called Price Rigidity, the Case of Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the conclusions they came to is that in relation to the price of food, price increases happen more often and are oftentimes larger in average than price decreases in Trinidad. And I found that to be my experience. Things always seem to go up and hardly ever seem to come down.
So there are two things. One, buying less does not always necessarily work, because buying less could sometimes work against you. It may actually cost you more and you're getting less in the long. So it may not always work. But I do like your point about you have a choice. With regard to prices, we have a history here in TNT of prices not going down. Prices going up.
Prices always go up.
So we have a history here in TNT of that happening. Prices never really go down. So this thing with respect to the price of flour is actually really good, I think. But how is that going to translate to products that utilize flour? It's not going to necessarily go down because
we do something.
But you also have to understand flour is just the base product. If, for example, I go to buy bread, what are the other ingredients that go in bread?
Yes, but you know, the UN, the price index for food, the FOA, has indicated that prices of food has gone down. Actually, index decreased by 1.7%.
In TNT or in the US?
Internationally.
Not every item.
Right, on certain commodities, but I could, well, it's an international scale globally, and they have indicated in terms of cereals, so I have it here, according to the Food Agriculture Organization of the UN Price Index, it went down because of a drop in the indices for sugar, vegetable oils, cereals, and dairy products. A lot of the items that go into baking goods. The only thing that hasn't gone down is the price of meat, the index for meat. So to me, and they said this is the lowest point since 2021. So in 2 years, this is the lowest it has been. And I just expect that there should be a concomitant reduction in prices generally.
So then the issue is, because I remember reading that article, I remember actually speaking about that here on Talking Points, and this was a while ago, because the FAO actually releases information, I think, on a monthly basis. And I do recall the price of beef actually going up, and the price of eggs as well. But yes, cereals, sugars, oils, that went down. So then the other focus is the distributors, so the importers and the distributors of these goods.
And they said those freight
prices
have gone down. Freight prices have also gone down.
They've gone down to pre-pandemic levels.
Exactly.
So that is where consumer protection comes in as well. Because yes, you don't want so much government intervention, but if globally you're seeing these prices going down, but the importers and distributors here in TNT have remained steady in their pricing. The only time I've actually seen something, what really fluctuates a lot, for example, is fish throughout the year. The price of goat has gone down. It was $40 a pound. It'll go up again. That's how it is. Such prices fluctuate. But generally speaking, every time you go to the supermarkets and you go to buy your products on the shelves, and you go to the cash register after, you cry. It is a necessity, but you cry.
So I actually would support price controls on basic necessities. I hear what people have to say about the negative effects. It could have actually a decrease in supply, a decrease in quality. I hear that. But I still would support price controls on basic necessities.
The key is what Keaton said with regards to steady. I think with imported food, with locally produced food, shortages in supply rarely make a stark difference as we've seen in the last couple of years. But with imported food, when we see prices goes down, the key is not to expect our prices to go down right away, because again, there's going to be a delay, right? The stock that we have currently was purchased not literally yesterday, but at some point in the past, probably under the higher price. They might have long-term supply contracts. That's how KFC's chicken prices never seem to be in line with the rest of the country. It's always raising at different times, or when everybody else raises, they actually stay where they're at.
But
so
from a
practical, will we see the price reduction eventually, and will it hold steady? Is it not just a strange fluctuation? It might take a few weeks, maybe a month, and the question is how long of a wait is reasonable, right? So we shouldn't expect it right away, but we should expect it to come eventually and not taking forever to come.
But then how come the same doesn't happen for price hikes? Why it is we have to wait for price decreases, but when it comes to a hike, literally the day it's announced, within the next 24 hours, prices go up. Yet it doesn't happen the other way around. Why is that? Why is that, Sean?
That's a good question, and I would argue that it is a legitimate one. It's to some extent a separate issue, because you're right. You're right. Because I mean, this is some of the arguments, and it makes sense because I've seen it played out with regards to oil and gas, with regards to the price of chicken and the various outlets and whatever. So you're right. I think perhaps that is also an issue that needs to be explored. Why is it that the price hikes are always automatic, right away, and very much the businesses are looking to protect their interests immediately, right? Now, to be fair, I don't know if we actually go back and look at all of the inflation, if we will see that there were always price hikes. So it could be that there was a steady increase in price over a period of time, and then eventually, in some cases, they decided, okay, now is the time that we need to start to increase our price. But there could be cases where you're right, where it just happens as the international markets change, even though the stock they have on the shelves was not affected by that change that happened whenever it happened.
I think
that should be looked into.
From a practical viewpoint, as a local consumer here in TNT, you go to buy chicken and chips, the price goes up, the chicken gets smaller, right? You go to buy any meal, price goes up, the box has gotten smaller.
Indeed.
And that's, I mean, that's
they
just,
do both.
That's just, but there's some companies now that don't even notify you anymore about when they're increasing their prices. I mean, one bakery owner, probably bakery owner here in TNT, has said his company waited months, up to 8 months, I think, before actually increasing the prices of their goods.
The name.
Right? Oh God, we all know what I'm talking about. I just say prominent bakery owner. Come on, we all know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Right? But the point is that Peter George Jr., his name is in the papers, it's all over. And Linda's Bakery. And that's just one bakery. Some people might say that's fancy bakery. You know, what about hole in the wall bakery? And this is the thing. People are going to make the argument that, listen, I simply could no longer afford, as a consumer, to eat as I did before. It's a matter of now eating little and trying to last long. So even the Supermarkets Association, which, by the way, accounts for not every single supermarket, and probably more so the bigger chains rather than the little supermarkets, they're saying that when you go now to supermarkets, you're seeing clientele purchasing less and actually even purchasing cheaper brands than previously. Yes. So you have fully stocked supermarket shelves. There are some items that you can't get anymore, but people are purchasing cheaper alternative products and purchasing less, and that is what is happening here in TNT. So, as much as I would say, and I'll tie back something to this, as much as you can say Moody's has given us a good rating and all that, and I think, okay, fine, in terms of an investment level, that's good. You want something like that, that's investment. But the man on the street not feeling an improvement in his wallet. Again, every time you go to the supermarket, you could purchase 5 items. You get to the cash register, $150. What's going on? And this is how people are living. Some people, I've noticed a trend. They go to the supermarket, they buy a loaf of bread, and probably a tin of sausages, and that's a meal for the day. For the day. I was told of a story, don't know how true it is because you don't know if stories are true. A family actually was eating a bowl of onions for breakfast.
Oh, wow.
Right? I don't know how true it is, but that's what I was told. A bowl of onions for breakfast.
So then, I mean, the topic is government being more involved. And I mean, the government has done certain things beyond, I mean, as we said, they are very reticent and reluctant to engage in price controls. But there are other things the government has done and can do. So the government has removed VAT on certain items. But as I have experienced, and I think everyone has experienced it, even though the VAT has been removed from over 20 basic items, it does not have this result in reduction in prices in the supermarket. It seems to me that the suppliers, the supermarkets and so forth, they have just simply kept the savings they would have received from the VAT.
I thought it was an insult, actually, when the Minister of Finance stood up in Parliament and said, and pigtail. I thought it was an insult.
But why was that an insult?
Because yes, you're removing VAT from pigtail. You're going to eat pigtail every day, do you know?
Well, no.
Let's be practical for a moment.
You're moving me from my point.
Guys,
yes, go ahead, Sean.
Guys, just remember that, remember VAT is charged in most cases, you know, after, it's not included in the price tag. So removing VAT is not going to remove the price tag. It's not going to reduce the price tag on the shelf. I actually get, and I don't know why, but I always get a little bit surprised. I pick my groceries. I'm trying to stay within our budget. And I always forget, oh, right. And then I'm going to hit the register and they're going to add taxes on top of that and it's going to increase the price. So to some extent, you know, the minister could laud the removal of VAT, but the base price is going to remain whatever the base price is going to be.
But that's the thing. It's the base price is supposed to remain the same. So they price their goods as in this is the base price, and they add the VAT and they give you the price on the shelf. So if VAT has been removed, they are supposed to remove the VAT from the price that you see on your shelf. It cannot remain the same. And that's why I'm saying all they have done is pocketed the savings for themselves. They have not passed on that benefit to the consumer. So again, that is something government has done and it did not work because we have...
So the government has done it.
Yes.
There is now a responsibility.
Yes.
On whether you want to say it's the supplier or even the supermarket. It is now their responsibility. But if the government has implemented such a policy, and as you said, information is always key, the consumer should be aware of their rights. Who now is actually monitoring and evaluating that supermarket?
The Consumer Affairs actually releases monthly a price list of, well, the list of prices in various groceries. That's what they could go on their website. I tried to access the website last night. The website is actually down, and it's still down this morning.
Oh no!
Yes.
Imagine that. Food prices up. Consumer Affairs website down.
You know, before I go on, you know, there's a song. I think it was Benjai who had a song called. The song was called Yeast. And the gist of this song is that there's yeast in everything in Trinidad except your salary. So everything goes up except your salary. There's yeast in the price of goods, there's yeast in the price of gas, there's yeast in the... And I always thought that was a very clever song. Have you ever heard that song?
No, I'm actually learning about it for the first time.
Go and look up that song. I thought it was a very clever...
the song which comes to mind actually now, which is a lot more relevant now, is Sparrow's Capitalism Gone Mad. Have you heard that song?
Yes.
Those lyrics, go and listen to it. He's absolutely... But then again, you know, as much as I'm saying, there probably needs to be greater oversight. Yes. I will agree. I have to look at it all around. Some of us get our priorities here in Trinidad absolutely wrong. We will quicker go and spend $1,200 on a new pair of shoes. When you can, and that's just because of the brand associated with it. If you can get a pair of shoes that fits well, that is comfortable and serves its purpose, and is cheaper, a third of the price, or even half the price. The mere fact is you're saving money. Why not do that? But no, we get our priorities wrong here in TNT. And I'm saying, yes, sometimes you have to have the power of choice, but you should also use your brains and be smart now with how you spend your money. Let's be honest with each other.
You could do that, and I see we're drawing close to the end of this discussion. So one thing I would also like to plug is the incentivization, is that a word? incentivization of locally produced items as alternatives. I think if we kept pushing that more, the Moruga Hill rice, the use of cassava flour, right now those things are quite expensive, but I felt if the government pumped more into pushing locally produced items as alternatives, prices should go down.
Incentivization is a way.
Now,
thank you.
But anyway, go ahead, Sean.
So a couple of things. I am still reluctant with regards to direct intervention on like a blanket policy, but I will say this. In Canada and the UK, their parliament basically interrogated various supermarkets with regards to prices and the fact that, hey, you're making profits, so it's hard for the consumers and for even us parliamentarians to accept that you're bearing part of the price increases yourselves. And I think, you know, locally we have those same questions, and perhaps we should have a committee question publicly major supermarket chains and do targeted or case-by-case interventions meant to just deal with the immediate situation and not necessarily have like a whole policy out of it that's long-term. But my last thing is, and it's a bit of a negative comment on the whole economic situation, just want to remind people, for better or worse, we built and based our economy off of oil and gas revenue and foreign exchange earnings. And now that we don't have it at the same level, I think what we're seeing is this is the pains of the economy, to some extent, having to readjust to that reality. And you're going to get that yeast effect where everything is rising except your salary because the economy is being forced to a new balance point as the earnings from energy, you know, reduce and dry up because we did not put things in place for when this happened. We didn't save for a rainy day, and now that it might reach, we're going to see the negative side effects of that, and the economy is not going to look the same.
I think that's an excellent way to conclude. I think that's a very good point that you've just made there. And yes, of course, the entire, or everything that we were accustomed to before here in TNT, you know, it's a new reality that we're living in. It's a new TNT that we're living in. We simply cannot afford anymore what we once had. And I would say that is also a failure of foresight, by the way, because we thought oil and gas was going to last us forever. We thought liquid coal was going to run through our taps. Well, to be honest with you, even government juice not even running through our taps these days. Let's take a break here on Talking Point.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Body parts found along the roadside in Mausika. 2 men in serious condition after suspected poisoning by a child. CXC results to be published on August 24th. Regionally, Saharan dust continues to affect the air quality in the Caribbean. And internationally, Hollywood actor Kevin Spacey denies sexual assault, claims the touch was romantic. Now for the details. There was traffic along the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway this morning after what appeared to be body parts was discovered. Motorists traversing the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway encountered a grisly sight early this morning as 2 severed human arms were found strewn across the highway. The Northern Division Police were called to the corner of the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway and Mausika Road South just before 6 a.m. after motorists reported seeing body parts. Officers and a DMO visited the scene and confirmed the body parts were human and appeared to be arms from the shoulder to the wrist. No further information was available on the gender, ethnicity, or overall identity of the person who the arms belonged to. 2 men are in stable but serious condition after it is believed that they were poisoned by a child while visiting a friend in Couva. Sources claim that the men went to a friend's house on Tuesday and were given hot chocolate and green tea by a child in the house. After drinking the beverages, both men began feeling unwell and started vomiting and experiencing diarrhea. They called an ambulance which took them to the hospital and were transferred to different health facilities. Police visited the home and seized the items they believed were contaminated. Inquiries are continuing. The Caribbean Examinations Council has announced that the May-June 2023 CXC exam results will be accessible via the online student portal on Thursday, August 24, 2023. It is said candidates may visit their website and log on to the online student portal to access the May-June 2023 CXC exam results on Thursday, August 24, 2023. Regionally, air quality across the Caribbean is continuing to be affected by a plume of Saharan dust. In an update, Antigua and Barbuda's Meteorological Service said air quality levels are moderate. The Met Service said the air quality is down to moderate levels as a result of particulate matters 2.5 and 10 associated with a fresh surge in the Saharan dust. Internationally, actor Kevin Spacey has told a jury touching his accuser was in my mind romantic. Spacey gave his defense during a trial for sexual assault. The two-time Oscar-winning actor said he had developed a flirtatious relationship with an accuser. He told the jury he and the complainant had been somewhat intimate but denied assaulting him. The 63-year-old faces 12 sexual offense charges, all of which he denies. The court heard the complainant alleges the incident happened as he drove Spacey to a showbiz party in the early 2000s. But that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for watching.
On the next episode of Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day.
The report came back that she had two properly...
Eric, behave yourself, no man.
Two properly working kidneys.
A son means a legacy, a future, but a daughter, there's that protective instinct, that kindness, that teaching her how to love and how she should be appreciated.
Even though the years have gone by a bit, I still feel that pain and still feel grief over her not being here with us.
Just keep going. Some days you're going to be okay. Other days it still hurts. It's all part of the journey to recovery.
You fight for us, yes you favor us, and you prosper us. You bless me.
An encore of Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN. Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Varicose veins is a serious medical condition that causes significant pain and debility.
The varicose veins might appear because the body is trying to form alternative pathways. And next thing you know, you go and treat that, and you've left an undiagnosed DVT there, which can be life-threatening. And if you don't diagnose and treat that, then you're treating the varicose veins, but you've ignored a big problem.
What's Up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Welcome back to Talking Point. Now, guys, before we open up the phone lines, I'm just following a story here. It's unverified, but it's stating that a man was shot in a rumour this morning, and the suspect was held by villagers. Reports indicate that the man was shot at the corner of Martinez Street and Arima, Old Road in Arima. The roadway where the shooting happened has been cordoned off by police. So I'm waiting for more information on this story, but apparently the suspect was held by villagers. So not necessarily vigilante justice, Sean, but definitely a village coming together.
Well, you see, that's what you hope to happen, but it's difficult to say that, okay, this is what will always happen, that they're able to apprehend without some level of violence or danger, both to the suspect, because again, innocent until proven guilty technically is supposed to be, the standard, so you don't end up hating an innocent person, but also to the people involved, the villagers involved. It's a risk, and law enforcement, rightfully so, doesn't necessarily want civilians to put themselves in harm's way to deal with criminals when they don't have to. Mm-hmm. Self-defense is something different. So it's a catch-22 situation. It's not something that I could ethically encourage. But the result is I'm grateful for the result.
Okay,
Let's
well,
put it that way.
You didn't say it, so I will say it. Well done to the villagers. Well done, actually, very much so. Anyway, let's open up the phone lines now. We give you the viewer the opportunity to share your thoughts and opinions with us. We just ask that, as always, because we're respectful, we ask that you be respectful. Fortunately, we have both phone lines working. That does not mean that you should take 4 minutes to make your point. Be concise, but as always, you're free to express your opinion. So 628-4578, 623-9376. I'll repeat that again, 628-4578, 623-9376. And we're fortunate because Janelle John Bates is still with us. So she's here to take your calls as well, and perhaps even respond to your thoughts and opinions. And if you have any questions directed for Janelle, you can ask her this morning. Putting you on the spot, by the way.
No problem.
So yes, the phone lines are open. You can call and join us. But this particular conversation that we were having earlier with regard to consumer protection here in TNT and consumer affairs, and I actually very much like that last point that you made, Sean, with regard to us, thinking that the oil and gas is going to last us long. And the reason why I say it's a failure of foresight is because we had an opportunity. We don't have the opportunity anymore. Well, it is still propping up the economy, but we're not thriving as we once did. So when we actually had the opportunity, we did not utilize it. We just basically lived a life of luxury, and even some will argue that the money that Trinidad and Tobago received from oil and gas was so badly spent. The level of development that you should see for a small island republic that had so much money is not there. I've been told that sometimes the quality of infrastructure in TNT is subpar compared to the quality of infrastructure around other Caribbean islands who didn't benefit one bit from oil and gas, who depend a lot more so on tourism. So
I don't know if I would agree with that. Not that I've been to a few islands. I don't find the infrastructure so much better than ours. From looking at it, obviously I'm not a structural engineer, but one thing I would say about Trinidad as it relates to our infrastructure is that we don't maintain. I find we have a problem with maintenance in Trinidad. We build something and we just leave it. We don't bother to scrub the glass facades, we don't cut the grass. We just have a major problem in maintenance.
And they say when you have a home, you never stop building. And that's because you're always doing something to maintain it.
Oh my goodness, ain't that the truth?
Yeah, you're always doing something to maintain it. But in terms of, public structures and public infrastructure, you're right. We simply do not. The state, for example, now I know everybody's probably aware of this, the state of, if I use Mount Hope as an example, of just even the waiting area, where patients actually have to go and register their information. It's one. Sometimes you see patients with oxygen tanks sitting down or lying down on chairs because they can't get a bed. But that's bed. But I'm even talking about the actual facilities. You really want to know, is this necessary? This is where this is what we call a hospital. So, you know, again, Trans-Tobago had an opportunity. We never utilized it. And we're seeing that happening now. And quite possibly with agriculture. I learned this morning, imagine this. There is a great demand for local chocolate, which I think is excellent. Locally, there's demand for chocolate. There is an issue, though, with the production of cocoa beans. And now producers here in TNT are saying, in order to meet the demand, we're probably going to have to import cocoa.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that? I never thought I'd hear that here in TNT. We're going to probably have to import cocoa.
But then that comes down to my point about incentivizing production of local produce. We need to encourage. I mean, I know there was some investment in the cocoa industry. I mean, we know why it collapsed. It collapsed because of disease, and I think there was some investment in trying to revamp it.
Is that why it collapsed?
Yes, that's one of the reasons. A disease struck some of our plants.
All right, we have two callers on the line, actually. So the first caller is from Sugarness. Good morning, caller.
Sugarness?
Yes, from you directly. Hello.
Right. I heard you criticize people who will not use cards for certain amounts and claim it was illegal. I find that strange.
I'm so sorry. Could you said you heard us criticize people who will not use cards for certain amounts?
Yes, certain amounts. You didn't?
The sellers, as in the business owners, refuse. They don't allow customers to use their cards, their bank cards, to pay for items below certain amounts. I have seen them put a threshold of 20.
Now, the reason I was given for that is there was a minimum charge.
Right, but that is illegal. The issuers of the cards have indicated there's no minimum amount. Consumers should be allowed to use their card to pay for any amount.
Caller, what's the point you're making? Hello? All right, actually, caller, we're going to take the second call. We're sorry we lost your call. I'm going to ask you if you can call back in and make your point, because I'm not entirely sure exactly what you were trying to say. So please call back in, but let's take this next caller. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Kijan.
Good morning.
You hear me?
We can hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Janelle.
Good morning.
Sean. Yeah, you talked about this price hikes and price reductions in with respect to you're focused on basically supermarkets. Let me say this, I have been going to the grocery since I was 14 years old with my mom, and that has continued through my life. And for the last 2 years, it is the first time in my lifetime in Trinidad and Tobago that I have seen consumers in the supermarkets without filled trolleys. It was so startling that people have started, and Janelle made this point about the consumer. People have started. I'm not sure if it was conscious or if it was a voluntary thing where people, because of the economic situations, people have started to buy just what they need. I have spoken to a couple of supermarket people in the supermarket business, and Rajiv Dipti had talked about it, where now the consumer now are forcing the supermarkets to bring their prices down. Yeah? I have looked at the prices in the supermarkets. I have seen butter, New Zealand butter, go up by almost 100% in 2 years.
Yes.
These are the type of things. So people just stopped buying.
Yeah.
So when you go to the supermarket, you see a lot of specials and those type of things because the consumer now are dictating the pace and not the pace of the pricing. I'm not sure if it's willingly because goods, you can't allow your goods to stay on the shelf. You need turnover. And because the supermarkets have to have turnover, they have been bringing down their prices. Surprisingly, in the last 6 months, prices have started to fall back to where what I saw, what I have seen, I like, because it shows that the consumer have decided that on the shelf, I'm not going to buy it. I'm just going to leave it there.
Thank you very much, caller. That's good to hear.
And that's good to hear. I have not experienced it though.
Yeah, I have
food bill.
not experienced that at all. I mean, that's really good. Maybe I need to come to San Fernando.
Maybe it's the grocery we go to.
Yeah, it's possibly the grocery I go to, but no, that is good overall. And yes, it's not willingly, it's not willingly. They simply don't have a choice.
Yes.
Because yes, they're purchasing less. You're saying they're purchasing what they need to. You're absolutely right. But in many instances now, items, even what they need, they need to do what you call it, equilibrium. I need to balance everything off. Listen, I need this, but I need this more, so I have to take this. This is what is happening.
You know, something else I just thought of that people can do. My mother-in-law actually suggested it. So buy in bulk. So we go together, more than one family, 3 families go together, and we buy items in bulk, and then we split it among us. So it's not. So hopefully we'll benefit from bulk buying. But what I have also noticed is that the prices in, I will not call the bulk supermarket that I attend, the prices there have also...
Membership shopping, yes.
The prices there the prices have skyrocketed there as well, but they have. But I still feel that maybe that's another thing we can look into: community shopping, street shopping, family shopping. We go together and then we split the price.
2 items not calling the name of the membership shopping center, that will cost you over $300.
I mean, it is bulk buying. So and that's why I said, I don't know why sometimes you go there and I see trolleys full there and I'm like, but this is one family. Why are we buying so much? But again, I don't know what people are doing. Maybe they're bargaining it off and giving it to their family and friends. I don't know.
So Sean, go ahead.
One of the unfortunate things with economics, because remember, is when you go to like country level analysis and societal level, things get a bit trickier, and you do have to consider like trends, etc. One of the things with economics is, and this speaks again back to the point where we just complain, we don't do anything about it. At least that's not always the case, as the caller pointed out. When the consumers will continue to buy, in theory, that means that you should once you're selling out rather, in theory, that means that you could and probably should raise your price.
All right, we have a call on the line with us. Sean, pause on that point for a moment, please. My apologies, but let's take this call. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Mr. Shah, Mr. Small, and the young lady who is co-hosting.
Mrs. John Bates.
Good morning and welcome to our show.
Thank you.
All right, listen to me on this food prices. There was a recent announcement of flour reduction. And I did my calculations. And I will run through my analytics on it and to show how facetious that price reduction is. And I'm going to tell you based on my experience in my kitchen. I already don't cook as my wife, but I'm going to tell you. A 10 kilo flour, I'm not going to call the popular wholesale thing, right in Shigona, it's one of the popular for all foreign goods. It's $87 to $90 a 10 kilo flour, right? I will use, or the household will use about half of that a month, and that is at the extreme. We're not only cooking roti and doubles, we're making bread too. That is $45. All right? That's the 10% savings on that is $4.5, right? And that is a month's supply. 4.5 can buy a double. A double is $6. So we'll be going with this. So it has to be across the board to make it meaningful for me. If I go into school with my kids early in the morning, $10 for 2 doubles or $12. So that price announcement, I think, is facetious, but I don't know who benefited from it. And I'm seeing where the National Flour Mills saying they're participating with it. If at the end of the financial year they don't give me back a profit on that state enterprise, I had to fire all of them because I don't want no political decision to be made. It must be, as I say, prudent, and it must be a profitable organization, but we still have to benefit.
All right,
and
cool.
all of the price increases and price reductions because of inefficiency, and I'm going to tell you about electricity too. You want me to go there?
Well, let's give somebody else an opportunity.
All right, I'll go.
But thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you. My question is, if you want these companies to make a profit, would you be willing to pay the unsubsidized full price rate on some of these products? You have to remember that as well. So I mean, the question is that as a consumer, would you have rather the prices to remain the same? Do you appreciate the 10 to 12% reduction?
I am taking my $4.50 very happily.
Exactly, because you know how much for a Bobby now?
Oh my gosh. Every $4.50 counts for me.
I think, did we have another call on the line with us? All right, I think we lost that caller. We do apologize. So sorry, Digger Martin, you had the opportunity to make your point there. We have about 2 minutes left for phone calls this morning. Call in and join us on the conversation. But you're right, $4.50 adds up. So even if we are saying this morning it's and there have people that have suggested it's an election gimmick. I've read comments on social media. I've read comments on newspapers articles. They're saying it's an election gimmick. It's you know, we are in silly
so
season.
cynical in this country. How is everything an election gimmick though?
Even if it is an election gimmick, me saving $4.50 may not necessarily change who I will vote for.
That is true as well. I mean, we're talking about prices.
How much things use flour?
Sorry?
How much things use flour?
A lot of things use flour.
Almost everything that you eat has flour in it. Almost.
And that is where I come to another thing we also can do as consumers. We need to adjust our tastes. We in Trinidad have a particular taste for certain things. And again, if we maybe ate more provisions, although the price of Edos are not necessarily cheaper.
I was just about to say.
Cassava and Edos are not necessarily that cheap. But I'm just saying, again, we need to explore all options. And one of the things, again, they always say buying local and eating local should have a reduction in a price.
So we have a call on the line with us, but Sean used the example of tomatoes earlier. I stopped buying tomatoes in the supermarket. You can get a bag, they're small, they may be small, but you can get a bag of tomatoes for $10.
I will tell you all what to do with tomatoes after, but take the call.
I stopped buying tomatoes in the
about
supermarket.
tomatoes.
Good morning, caller from San Fernando.
Yes, Askita, I forgot to mention quickly. Up to the end of 2020, I haven't been to Tobago since then, but the prices in Tobago, because these are things that I check, I was surprised that the supermarket prices in Tobago were on par and sometimes cheaper than in Trinidad.
Yes.
And that is something that we need to do, because I can't understand that.
I don't know either, caller.
We always complain that prices in Tobago are supposed to be more expensive,
No,
but they are the same.
thank you for raising that point, caller. You are absolutely correct.
Don't let Tobago say that, you know.
No, seriously.
No, the prices are the
this is the thing. Tobago have the best current roll as well as the best food supermarket prices. Because Janelle, by the way, we have to take Janelle to that bakery, so the edge of a cliff, but it is the best current roll I've ever had.
I have to eat that current
in my
roll.
entire
I have lived
life.
in Tobago for periods of times because of work, so I'm quite familiar with Tobago.
Excellent. But the food prices here.
So I support this food price.
Up to recently, I was, up to about a month or two ago, I was in Tobago. And again, callers absolutely right. A lot of the products on the shelves are cheaper than here in TNT.
But before we go, remember, let me tell you all what you'll need to do as well. So when I realized the price of tomatoes were going as much as $25 at one point, I came across a suggestion to freeze. So when the price dropped to about $10, I bought a set, cut them up and freeze them, and I use them in my cooking. I do that with pumpkin, I do that with potato, I do that with pimentos. I have like bags of pimentos in my freezer. So again, I want to always encourage consumers to empower themselves. When the prices are low, in as much as you can freeze, freeze.
No, good point. So a lot of people do that. One thing though, How big is your freezer? Because my freezer is not that big.
Well, it's part of the fridge. I don't have a separate freezer.
You don't?
No, I don't.
And you have space to freeze tomatoes?
And I am freezing my tomatoes. I'm freezing my pumpkin, my pimentos.
I know what a lot of people do.
Put less ice cream in your fridge, Kita.
No. I refuse to put less ice cream in my fridge. I shall not do such a thing.
And look at what he's spending his money on, huh? Look at ice cream. What brand ice cream? You could say?
Yes, sure.
How expensive ice cream you have in your freezer?
I like B's homemade coconut ice cream.
Very good. Support local.
I like B's homemade coconut ice cream. In fact, you're a fine one to talk, Sean. I think we should take a photo of your desk on a daily basis and show the viewers exactly.
What does that have to do about ice cream, Kitan? What does that have to do? I don't have ice cream on my desk.
No, actually, you're right. You don't have ice cream. You do prioritize more so on food. Last week, Sean went to a Chinese restaurant and came back with a bag. I think it had 4 or 5 containers in it. So we thought he bought for the office.
No.
That was breakfast.
Oh my God. No. Somebody wanted some soup. I wanted some soup, and I had some noodles on the side. That's it, Keaton. 4 or 5 things.
Anyway, listen. You stick to your Chinese. I stick to my coconut ice cream. Janelle, stick to your tomatoes.
Correct.
And you know what? Maybe we'll have to mix and match and share, because that's just in the direction that we're heading. But Janelle, thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's good to see you once more.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's a shame Sean is not here in person, but
that's okay. We still get to see his face via Zoom.
We do.
All the way up in the camera.
Y'all might have to see me over Zoom on next week Friday, but I guess we'll talk about that.
That's okay. It's always good to have you here via Zoom, via Instagram. Sean, it's good to see you once more. Make the most of this weekend, my friend. You know, try and enjoy it a little bit.
Technically, I'll still be waiting over this weekend. But I wanted to finish my point and say this quick. And it goes with what Janelle was saying about consumers making different choices and hopefully better choices. As long as we keep buying things, no matter how much the price raises, that sends a signal to businesses, especially if these things are close to selling out, that they could and potentially should increase the price. So to be fair to them, send the signal that you want them to hear, that you want them to understand. Send the signal that, hey, this, no more. We're not going to accept it. You need to do better, because you know, again, how is Tobago prices better if everything has to go an extra step of shipping?
I also think that, and you should be mindful of this, some people might not take you very seriously, because we've had this conversation this morning. Callers are calling and agreeing. But there are many of us out there who will complain about prices, who will complain it's always going up. They can't afford this, they can't afford that. I can't afford school books for my children. And yeah, school books are very high. But I'll spend $2,500 for 6 hours in a FET. Some people, let's be honest with you, sometimes people just don't take us seriously because our spending habits don't change. We get our priorities wrong. Have a great weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.
WESN.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
Varicose veins is a serious medical condition that causes significant pain and debility.
The varicose veins might appear because the body is trying to form alternative pathways. And next thing you know, go and treat that, and you've left an undiagnosed DVT there, which can be life-threatening. And if you don't diagnose and treat that, then you're treating the varicose veins, but you've ignored a big problem.
What's Up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it.
It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Did you tell your hubby about it, first of all?
I did.
When you were telling him, did you think that he was going to think differently of you or less of you?
I thought exactly that.